Social media makes travel look flawless. Perfect sunsets, effortless smiles that just woke up like this aesthetic in front of the Eiffel Tower. But here's what those highlight reels don't show you. The hour I spent in the wrong immigration line on day one of a 6-month trip. The time I nearly destroyed a rental car because I didn't understand European fuel pumps. The moment I realized I'd left my wife stranded in a Madrid metro with no idea where she was going. So today, I'm walking you through 15 travel mistakes I've made so you don't have to. 1. Standing in the wrong line for an hour. Frankfurt Airport, I see this massive queue at passport control and just assume it's for me. 1 hour later, after shuffling forward inch by miserable inch, I get to the front and discover the agent looking at me like I'm an idiot. Turns out that line wasn't even for my Schengen entry. The signage was confusing, sure, but I never bothered to confirm. You know what's wild? This happens everywhere, not just airports. I've watched tourists stand in 45-minute lines outside the Pantheon in Rome when they already had tickets. I've seen people queue for Instagram-famous sandwich shops that had a separate pickup line right next to them. Here's the rule. If you see a queue, don't just join it. Take 30 seconds to ask someone what the line is actually for. Better to feel slightly awkward for asking than to waste 30 minutes of your trip standing in the wrong place. 2. Not booking major attractions in advance. I've been to Milan twice. Have I seen The Last Supper? Number. I've been to Amsterdam 3 times. Have I been inside Anne Frank's house? Also number. You know why? Because when you're planning a trip, it's so easy to make a list of must-sees and then completely forget to actually buy the tickets. Some attractions have mandatory advance reservations that sell out weeks, sometimes months ahead. What I do now, as soon as I book flights, I immediately research which attractions require advance tickets and buy them right then. If I can't buy them far out, I set calendar reminders for the exact day they become available. For last-minute plans or sold-out situations, I check Viator or Get Your Guide. Sometimes they have availability through guided tours even when direct tickets are gone. 3. Almost leaving my travel partner. Picture this. Madrid. Just landed, exhausted, trying to navigate public transit to our Airbnb. The metro platform is packed, and being the opportunistic traveler I am, I see a train about to leave and sprint for it. I make it. The doors close. Then I realize my wife is still on the platform, and she has no idea where we're even going. No data signal down in the metro. No address saved on her phone. I nearly separated us permanently on day 1 of this trip because I assumed she'd just know where to go. She did make it onto the train at the last second, thankfully. But here's what I learned. To anyone traveling with a partner or group, don't be the person who has all the information in your head. Make sure everyone has the accommodation address saved, has data or an offline Google map downloaded, and knows the basic plan. To the opportunistic sprinters out there, maybe just wait for the next train. They come every few minutes. 4. Leaving my backpack on a train. This wasn't just any backpack. This was the backpack with my laptop, our drone, all our camera gear, and copies of every important document we had. I left it on the train. I realized about 30 seconds after stepping onto the platform, ran back, and somehow, miraculously, it was still there. Nobody had touched it. The lesson isn't trust that people won't steal your stuff. The lesson is, when you're tired, distracted, rushing through unfamiliar environments, it's incredibly easy to forget something critical. Now I do a physical sweep before leaving any location. Trains, restaurants, hotel rooms. I literally look at my seat, check the overhead rack, and pat my pockets. It takes 5 seconds. Also, here's a truth I keep repeating on this channel. Traveling with less means less to keep track of. You don't need as much as you think you do. 5. Grabbing someone else's identical backpack. Ireland, our honeymoon. I'm at baggage claim. See my bright green Osprey Porter 46-liter backpack come around the carousel. Grab it, walk out of the airport, get into a taxi, and head 20 minutes toward our hotel. Then my phone rings. It's the airport. I have the wrong bag. Turns out someone on my exact flight had the exact same backpack. Same brand, same color, same size. Wild coincidence, right? Thank God I had a luggage tag with my contact info on it, because this was years before AirTags existed. Without that tag, I'm not sure how we would have reconnected. 2 fixes here. 1. Double-check it's actually your bag before leaving the carousel. Open it if you need to. 2. Make your bag identifiable. Luggage tag with your info, a bright ribbon, a unique sticker, anything so you don't grab someone else's identical black roller bag. 6. Moving every 3 days. When we wrapped up 6 months of full-time travel and finally settled back home, I was completely burnt out. Exhausted in a way that sleeping for a week couldn't fix. I looked back at our itinerary and realized we had moved accommodations every 3 days on average, for 6 months. We did the same thing later when traveling with our daughter through Belgium and the Netherlands. 4 locations in under 2 weeks. Every 3 days, pack up, check out, navigate to the next place, check in, unpack, repeat. It was miserable. Here's what I learned about itinerary pacing. When you try to see everything and do everything, you end up experiencing nothing deeply. You're constantly stressed about the next train, the next reservation, the next checkout time. What I do now, I build in off days. Days where there's no plan, no must-see attraction. Days to just exist in a place, find a cafe, people watch, let spontaneous things happen. Slow down. You'll actually enjoy the trip more. 7. Not booking directly with small hotels and B&Bs. For years, I used Booking.com to reserve stays at family-run hotels and B&Bs across Europe. Convenient, easy, all in one place. What I didn't realize, these third-party sites take a massive cut, 15% to 20%, from small property owners. That's a significant chunk of their revenue going to a booking platform. Then I discovered that if I could find the property's email address and contact them directly, many hosts were happy to offer me a discount for cutting out the middleman. Problem was, finding that email sometimes required serious detective work. A while back, I found a free Chrome extension called Direct-O that does this automatically. You search for lodging like normal, and once you find a place you like, Direct-O scans for direct contact info or alternate booking options. You get the same room for less money, and you're supporting the actual people who run the place. It's a win-win. 8. Forgetting to check entry requirements and getting blocked. Christmas 2021. We were supposed to spend the holidays in Bansko, Bulgaria. Had the flights booked, accommodation reserved, the whole plan set. The morning of our flight, I double-checked something and realized we didn't actually qualify to enter Bulgaria under their COVID quarantine rules at the time. We couldn't get on the plane. Lost money on flights, lost money on accommodations, spent Christmas scrambling to figure out where we could actually go. The lesson, always, and I mean always, check official entry requirements before you book anything. This includes visa requirements, passport validity. Many countries require 6 months remaining. Proof of onward travel. New digital entry systems, like Europe's EES or the UK's ETA. Yes, COVID made this extra chaotic, but entry requirements exist for every country, all the time, and they change. Bookmark your government's travel advisory site and actually use it. 9. Not having physical copies of important documents. If your phone dies and everything you need for travel, tickets, reservations, passport scans, is stored digitally on that phone, you're going to have a bad time. I learned this the hard way multiple times before developing a system. What I do now: 1. Email myself a folder with all important documents in one place. 2. Print physical copies and keep them in a Ziploc bag that's easy to access. 3. Take photos of my passport and IDs stored separately from the originals. It sounds paranoid until the one time you actually need it. 10. Not validating my train ticket. My very first trip to Germany. I'm riding the S-Bahn, or maybe the U-Bahn, can't remember, and at a random stop, a few normal-looking people suddenly pull out these handheld machines and start checking tickets. I show them my ticket, feeling confident. Next thing I know, they're writing me a fine. Why? I didn't validate it. Turns out, in many parts of Germany, and Italy, and other places in Europe, you buy a ticket, but then you have to stick it in a little validation machine before boarding. I had no idea. The lesson: just because you paid for a ticket doesn't mean you're done. Research how ticketing works in each country. Look for those little yellow or green validation boxes near platforms. Did I pay the fine? Yes. Did it ruin my day? Also, yes. 11. Traveling without access to cash. Valencia, Spain, quick weekend trip with a friend. We're watching a flamenco performance at this incredible little venue, and at the end of the night I realize they only take cash. Neither of us had a debit card. Not one between the two of us. I had to call my partner back home in a panic, who helped me set up a temporary PIN on one of my credit cards so I could withdraw cash at an ATM, with an absurd fee attached. But we made it work. The reality check. Credit cards are not accepted everywhere, especially outside major tourist zones. You need a way to access local currency. What I carry now, at least one debit card that works internationally, and I make sure I know my PIN before I leave. 12. Not knowing about local strikes, holidays, or closures. Athens, Greece. We're trying to get to the airport, and we walk 20 minutes from our Airbnb to the train station, only to find it completely shut down due to a protest. No signs, no warning, just closed. We walk another 15 minutes to the metro, also closed. We end up in a line of tourists getting gouged by taxi drivers who knew exactly what they were doing, charging triple the normal rate to desperate travelers with flights to catch. Another time, we booked a stay in Füssen, Germany during the winter off-season and arrived to find that basically everything, restaurants, shops, attractions, closed at 5 p.m. What I do now, Google public holidays at my destination before I go, follow local news sources or expat Facebook groups for real-time updates on strikes or protests. Ask locals in online forums about seasonal closures. You don't have to avoid these situations, just be aware they might happen. 13. Waiting too long to travel with my baby. We have a daughter who's almost 3 now, and by the time you're watching this, she's been to 11 countries. But we didn't take her on her first international trip until she was 9 months old. Looking back, I think we could have started way earlier. Babies under 6 months mostly just sleep and eat. That's actually pretty manageable in another country. It gets harder in the 1 to 18-month range when they're mobile, but don't understand anything you're saying. My advice to new parents: if you're nervous about international travel with a newborn, start with a short nearby trip to test it out. Babies under 2 fly free or dirt cheap. Take advantage of that window. 14. Not checking which airport budget airlines actually use. Early in my travel days, I lived off budget flights. $20 Ryanair flights all over Europe. It was glorious. Until I realized many cities have multiple airports, and budget airlines often fly into the regional one that's an hour outside the city you actually want to visit. When you type a city name into Google Flights, pay attention to the airport code. Make sure you know 1. Which airport you're actually flying into. 2. How to get from that airport to where you want to go. 3. How much that transfer will cost. If you save $20 on a flight but have to spend $75 on a bus and another hour of travel time, was it even worth it? Sometimes yes, often no. 15. The diesel disaster. Late 2021, we're driving from Croatia to Italy in a rental car. Remote area, not much around. I pull into a gas station to fuel up. Our car runs on diesel. In the US, diesel pumps are green. So I grab the green handle, fill up the tank, and keep driving. Less than a mile down the road, the car starts shaking. Then it dies completely on the side of the road. Here's the thing. In most of Europe, green handles are petrol, not diesel. I just filled a diesel car with gasoline. What followed was a full-day disaster. Waiting for a tow truck in the opposite direction of where we needed to go, arranging a new rental car, panicking about how much this would cost. Thankfully, our trip insurance covered the damage to the car, and the car itself wasn't as destroyed as I feared. But this could have been so much worse. The lesson here isn't just check fuel colors in Europe. The real lesson is this. When you're traveling, especially long-term international travel, stuff is going to go wrong. Your attitude, your problem-solving skills, your ability to laugh at yourself later, that's what makes the difference between a ruined trip and a story you'll tell for years. Mistakes happen. That's travel. If you've made any of these mistakes, or if you've got an even worse one, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear I'm not alone in my travel stupidity. Thanks for watching. Safe travels.